Unmatched for Marriott is core to who we are. You could say it's part of our DNA. Since Bill Sr. and Alice S. Marriott founded our company in 1927, women have played an important role in our success, and women continue to drive success of our company. Unmatched is the importance of women's empowerment and leadership as a key priority for Marriott Hotels, and as such, it is my pleasure, my distinct pleasure, to welcome a discussion this morning led by three truly inspiring women. These women, who are indeed titans of travel, will discuss their journey to the executive level in the travel industry. They'll share with you their personal stories, obstacles overcome, and key messages of their success. For today's powerful discussion, please welcome our titans of travel: Dorothy Dowling, Chief Marketing Officer, Best Western Hotels and Resorts; Chrissy Taylor, President and Chief Operating Officer, Enterprise Holdings; and Ariel Malou-Wechsler, Senior Vice President, People, Culture, and Communications with Air Canada.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask each of us to introduce ourselves, so maybe we could start with you, Ariel.
Sure, pleasure. Thank you, Dorothy. Hi, so as you see, I'm Ariel Malou. I'm Senior Vice President, People, Culture, and Communications at Air Canada, which really, in the real world, means CHRO and Communications. We're 30,000 employees worldwide, 35,000 retirees, so my job really consists of making sure that our more than 30,000 brand ambassadors understand where we're going, see the path ahead, and are engaged and empowered to make good decisions for our wonderful customers. We served over 51 million customers last year.
Thank you, Ariel. Chrissy, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Chrissy Taylor. I am President and Chief Operating Officer of Enterprise Holdings, which are the brands. The mothership, I call it, is Enterprise, National, and Alamo. We have 10,000 locations. We have 100,000 employees and 2 million vehicles running through our global network in 95 countries. We are still privately held, and we enjoy the business and having a great time with our 100,000 people. And thank you so much for the partnership to all of you, and thank you for attending last night. How much fun was that?
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Dorothy Dowling, and it's always delightful to be back in Toronto. I oversee all of the revenue driving and customer driving functions for Best Western globally. I know Alex did a great job yesterday explaining that we have 16 brands under our roof now. We're in over 100 countries, and again, it's always a pleasure to be here in Toronto with all of you. So I think we'll start with the first question, and Chrissy, I'd like to maybe you share with us in terms of what does your company do to foster the professional growth and deployment of women in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So really, it's about role models. And so, as I said, we're privately held, but our family is a majority of female. And so the ownership of the business is female. And then when you look at our board, even though we're privately held, we have a fully functioning board. Over 50% of that board is female. And then when you look at our upper management, our CEO is a non-family member, and she is a woman. Then there's me, and then our treasurer, our VP of HR, and so on is female. And so there are a ton of role models within the organization. But what we also do is we will hire 10,000 people into our management training program through the Enterprise brand a year. And so from those 10,000 people, we want to make sure that we're fostering diversity and inclusion and female leadership. And so they come up through the ranks through our organization, and they can see where they stand at any point in time from a performance standpoint. And so everyone has the opportunity. And when you look at our upper management team, 95% of our team came up through that management training program. And so they can really see role models and examples within our organization, and then we can watch those really ambitious, smart, high performers through the organization.
Terrific, thank you. How about you, Ariel?
So our story is a little bit different because being an airline, we're a very male-dominated business. If you think about pilots, for example, only 6% of our pilots are women. Think of mechanics and our engineers. But that being said, we haven't given up. And how we really are bringing diversity and inclusion in is through a lot of awareness training, unconscious bias training. But most importantly, I would point to buy-in from the top. If it wasn't for our CEO and our board truly believing in this, I think given that we are so male-dominated, it would be much more of a challenge. I think of a conference I spoke at a little while ago where our CEO introduced me, and he told such a great story. He finished by saying to all the women in the room, it was a women's conference, he finished by saying, you know, at Air Canada, there are no glass ceilings, and when you break through those ceilings, make sure there are men around to sweep up the pieces. And it just shows how truly he believes in it and how truly he is behind it. And with that, we've built a lot of programs. We have a program called Women in Aviation, where we do sort of this. We bring in women to speak to our women. We do a lot of work with schools and girls in STEM to make sure that the girls see that path. They see our women engineers, they see our women pilots, and that they want to aspire to that. So those are a few of the things that we're doing.
Thank you, Ariel. And if I may talk a little bit about Best Western, we, like both Christy and Ariel, have a very programmatic approach in terms of diversity and inclusion. But I'd like to speak about a little bit different than Best Western, because I'm very proud to be the chair of WINIT, which is, of course, now owned by GBTA. And I have an ask of everyone in this audience, because to me, we have to own the need for diversity and inclusion. Best Western has made a significant donation to be part of WINIT, so that as an industry we can collaborate together. I know Saurabh Grewal is here somewhere in the audience, but my ask is for us as an industry to stand up and own this need for us to have a much more broader approach to systemically approaching some of the challenges that we have for women in our industry, and to collaborate together. We all know that ISS is taking a very definitive approach to actually rating companies in terms of their approach to diversity and inclusion. GBTA, through their acquisition of WINIT, really wanted to allow the industry to work together differently. So Best Western is number 10 in terms of global hotel organizations. We made a $50,000 contribution to WINIT to get it starting out. I'm putting that out there as a benchmark because we sit as number 10, so I expect many others to write a bigger check so that we can really embrace some of the opportunities together and take this industry up. So that's my ask. But I'm going to move off the commercial pitch now. Okay, so if we could move on personally, because, you know, Chrissy, I was very moved when I spoke with you and you talked about the nature of your organization, because I have never experienced anything like that in my career in terms of being in such a nurturing environment with so many women role models. But perhaps you could share your own leadership path, because being in a privately held company, I know that it's quite different, and maybe you could help others see how you progressed in your career.
Absolutely. So just like any good university college student, I needed a job and I needed some money. So I started as an intern renting cars in a branch in St. Louis. So branch is a location. So I was an intern and then joined our management training program in 2000, spent several years working my way up, became a branch manager. Then I actually moved over to corporate to see how big our organization was and what are the right questions to be asking about this family organization that I am now a part of. But then I also spent some time in London working with our operations, and then moved back, was in a variety of different positions, got my MBA. I felt like different perspective was important, and so I brought something new to the table. And so I think both in the London case and getting my MBA, it's about new experiences and then also stepping outside the box of what you're comfortable with. So then we did that, and then I became, let's see, what did I do? I think I've had 17 jobs within our organization. I can't remember them all. But then took the role of over SVP of North America, and then promoted to Chief Operating Officer, and then now in my current role. And moving up through the system, it's really important, as I said, to have a role model. And so Pam Nicholson, our Chief Executive, you know, she has been with us for 37 years, and just watching her and having her spending time with me, you know, you need those people to help you. And then also finding who else in your network is gonna help you and foster you, and someone that you can trust that will give you the right feedback, man or woman. It is really important that you've got those people to lean on, because no one does it alone. This is a team sport, 100%.
No question. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Ariel, you also have had an amazing career, because you actually had a very definitive path, and then you took a major left or right turn. So maybe you could share with the audience how you made some of those decisions.
Sure. So I'm an M&A lawyer. So I started my career in big downtown law firm in Montreal doing transactions, and I thought I would be there forever. Absolutely love my job. But deep down, what I was missing was that connection to one business. As an external counsel, you give advice, you close a transaction, but you don't really know where it goes. Did they buy something else afterwards? What did they do? So when Air Canada came knocking, it kind of triggered something in me, and I thought, okay, I could do the same thing, but be part of a business. So I joined Air Canada's legal department in 1997, and those were really tough years for the airline industry, for anyone who follows our industry. There was about 1.5 good years, and then that was it. As of '99, the industry really took a very sad turn. And so for all of those years, from pretty well 1999 till 2011, I worked on all of the financings, the refinancings, the restructurings, and there were many. And by 2011, we sort of started to stabilize the company, and that's when our CEO tapped me. He's also a lawyer by profession, and he asked me to move into HR. And I'll be honest, that was really a very strange move for me. I thought if I ever moved out of the legal department, I would move maybe into the commercial department, but I had never really thought of HR. But his thinking was that he wanted somebody who had a deep understanding of the business to help move the culture. Because now that we had sort of stabilized from a financial perspective, we knew the only way we were going to get to that next level was to regain the trust of our employees and get our employees on board. We couldn't do it without our, as I said, 30,000 brand ambassadors. So that was his mandate. Come on board, try and help me move the culture. And of course, my one term was, if I don't like it, can I go back? And he said I could, but here we are, 2019, and would never go back, not for a second. I mean, to me, the people agenda is what it's all about. So it was an unlikely turn, but really a great career move for me.
Thank you, Ariel. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I think many of you know that I grew up in Toronto. I went to school at the University of Waterloo, and I'm very grateful to have been a Canadian and to be able to have a great education, an undergraduate and a graduate degree at the University of Waterloo. In my early 30s, I had a chance to move to the United States, which was a big decision for me, but it was certainly one of the pivotal decisions of my career. And it also is something that I reflect upon often, because for me, I could never have made that decision without my husband. And I get emotional about it because I can still think about sitting with my mother-in-law and father-in-law in Bath, Ontario, as we had this conversation, because my husband had a great job and we were going to make this decision to move to the US, and his parents were quite disturbed about this decision. And he looked his mother in the eye and he said, you know, Mom, if this conversation was about me, there wouldn't be any conversation at all. So we're not going to discuss it any further. We've made this decision. So he allowed me to take on a different path in my career, which would never have been possible. And it allowed me to take on a lot of different things. And he became a stay-at-home parent, which really allowed me to fuel my career very differently. So one of the learnings I have had is choose the right partner. They will fuel your life. And if you don't make that decision, it will always hold you back. So that's the first thing. The last part of my life has been with Best Western. I've been here for almost 15 years. And it's taught me another amazing part of a journey that I wish I had have known earlier, but it's hire the right boss. I interviewed with David Kong 15 years ago, and I wasn't really looking. A recruiter got me in front of him, and I told him if he got the CEO job to give me a call. But I knew that David would bring out the best in me and that we could accomplish many things together. Because at that time, I would tell you, Best Western was a legacy brand that had seen its best days. And I look at the last 15 years of my career, and it's been the most amazing time of my life, because we have made Best Western together as a team into what I consider a very significant challenger brand. So the lessons that I offer in terms of the journey that I've been on, I'm very grateful that I started my career in Canada, because I think you're a big fish in a small pond, so you get to see and do a lot of things that you may not in bigger companies, so that's always good. I do believe that you have to choose the right partner and surround yourself with the right people, because they will fuel you in all kinds of situations. And lastly, my advice is always hire the right boss, because they will bring out the best in you. So that's...
I'm going to go home and thank my husband and my boss. Those were great.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you, husband.
All right, so the next question I'm going to ask you, Chrissy.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is really about the pace of change in technology and how it's fueling it. So can you tell me how you keep up with the pace of change, particularly with this fourth stage of the industrial revolution, this digital revolution? How do you stay on top of your game?
Yeah, it's interesting. Technology is moving quickly. You know, as I said, we have 2 million vehicles. They are the latest and greatest vehicles because we have, 2 million of them and we rotate them every single year. And so we can see that technology moving quickly. The one thing about when you say there's so much change, I think you have to look at yourself as an organization and say, what are the things, what are the core competencies that we will never change? What are those non-negotiables? Because if you know those things, then you can stay clear, but then move into the future and evolve. None of this is a revolution, it's an evolution. And so when we look at our business and what we do well, it's, customer satisfaction is number one. Every single branch and location and business line gets a score. Employee development, most important, because we've got 100,000 people and we're hiring those young college grads. This is a career, not one-stop shop. And then we're a growth organization, because if we're growing, obviously, our customer service is then high and people like us and they're coming back. And if we're growing, we're providing opportunities to our employees and our people. And then at the end of the day, if you do those three things, what shakes out is a very healthy and sustainable business. And so we understand that we need to focus on those things. Now, on the flip side, technology is moving very quickly. And so over the past several years, we developed a venture arm or an investment arm that over the last several years, we've invested $2.5 billion into the marketplace. We have 3 high-level categories that we've invested in. One is traditional rental car. A lot of that rental car acquisition has happened in Europe to build out our footprint. The second one is in ride sharing and other modes of transportation. So we have a new business, Commute, which we are the largest commuter organization in North America. And so we want to make sure that we're just evolving, because people are asking for more transportation and more mobility options, not fewer. And then that last bucket is about education and autonomous and what's new and what's moving really quickly, what's AI, what's all of these things. And so we have a pool of money that we've taken to invest in companies, new startups and venture fund that helps educate us. Because this is something that my dad says, is that, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And so we need to make sure that we continue to move forward and we educate ourselves and be involved in those conversations that are happening. So
That's impressive.
Yeah.
So I might offer, from my point of view and the seat that I lead in our organization, it's really about marketing and understanding the customer. And I fundamentally believe that we all have to be marketing anthropologists. So that means you have to invest in the kind of technology in your home so that you can experience the world like the customer does. And I look at, in the marketing space today, we look at video on demand, we look at over-the-top boxes, we're looking at AI and what it does. And so everywhere in my home, I have an Alexa and I have a Google Hub. I have every over-the-top box on every single one of our TVs. And I'm trying to understand that customer journey and try to experience as they do. Because I fundamentally believe that our job is to think about connecting the dots. So we have to experience like our customers do so that we can anticipate the journeys that they're on in trying to find our brands, learn about our brands, and actually purchase our brands. So that's my tip to you. So, Ariel, what piece of advice would you have wished someone had given you in the early stages of your career?
I think the biggest one is probably believe in yourself. I think as women, we do have a little bit of that imposter syndrome. We all know you look at a CV, you've got 80% of it, you right away say, well, I don't have 20, or job description, sorry, I don't have the 20%, I'm not gonna apply, whereas, a man will look at it and 70-30 and say, I got it all. So I really think that would have cut a lot of corners for me, that sort of self-doubt that a lot of women have. I really think that we need to just sort of get out of our own heads, because if you think of where business is going today, global economy, everything's happening so fast. As I said earlier, it really is all about the people. The type of skill sets that we need from top leadership are actually attributes that are very natural to women. So we shouldn't be questioning whether we are able to do the job or not, because in the end, it really is all about the soft stuff increasingly in business with everything that's going on. So to me, that would have been probably the most helpful.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Chrissy?
Yeah, so mine would be win the war, not the battle. And so along the way, you have discussions, and there are certain days that you're like, oh, I'm going to win that fight, win that discussion. It's going to go my way. But then you lose sight of what is the strategic overview and what are you actually trying to do, and you want to win the war for the long term. And so it's not about winning every single thing along the way. And because then I was starting, so this was the advice somebody finally gave me was, hey, you're looking a little bit pushy and like you're dominating the whole conversation. And so it's like, you know what? You don't have to win every single thing, but you need to, in our roles now, you got to look at the long term, the strategic view. It's not a perfect world, and just keep looking out there, because that will guide the organization in the right way. Pivot along the way, but win the war, not the
Those are extraordinary tips. I always had a lot of people giving me advice along the way, so I don't know that I wish for much more, because I've had several tune-ups in my career. But I would tell you that the most important thing that I learned very early on is you got to put numbers on the scoreboard. Because if you put the numbers on the scoreboard, it's hard to move you out of the chair, because you're driving real value creation for the organization that you work for. So if I had a wish, I wish that I didn't learn it maybe the way I did, but I certainly learned it well when the opportunity presented itself. So Chrissy, in 3 words or less, what is your outlook for women in travel?
3 words or less. Engage, empower, innovate.
Wow, powerful. Ariel?
I'm going to cheat and I'm going to do 5.
Ooh.
Hopeful, but not quite there.
Okay, well, I think I'm hopeful too. But I will tell you, working in the hotel category, I still think there's a glass ceiling. And I don't see it cracking anytime soon. So I'm hopeful that we can all join together and try and develop some programmatic ways to really empower women differently, because I would love to see it in my lifetime, to see a woman CEO in the hotel business in a very significant role, and I have not yet. So I hope that is in
Yeah,
my
it's
lifetime.
interesting because, sorry, I'm
Yep.
sort of going to add something. So it's interesting because in the car rental space, we actually have Europe Car is run by a woman, Hertz is run by a woman, and Enterprise Holdings is run by a woman. And so for our industry, we have really seen that change. And then the auto industry and the OEMs, we've got Mary Barra, who is, a great representation of female leadership of a huge organization. And so we have seen that shift. It can always be better, at the top level or in that middle layer, but we feel it in our industry.
Yeah.
But I do take the point, because when you look at the Fortune 500 companies, only 26 of them are women. And so you're right, the numbers are still stacked against us, but this is a great time for us to have a voice, because we are talking about it and it is so relevant in the media today. So this is a real opportunity for women in leadership roles and us in this forum to step up and have an opinion and to really make a difference and to pay it forward.
Hence the hopeful.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right, exactly. Sorry,
And while I
just
agree
said
with you,
something.
Chrissy, my only concern is that there's fewer women on that Fortune 500 list today than there was last year. So it's not moving in the right direction, and that's why fundamentally I believe we need some programmatic change. And we have to look in the mirror and recognize that it's not moving in the right trajectory. So that's why I'm hopeful, but I think we need a plan, and we've got to focus on executing that plan. Okay, so we're coming near the close of the conversation, but I'm wondering what kind of tips you might like to share with the audience in terms of things that you've learned in your journey, Ariel, that people might walk away with and be able to apply to their own careers.
Yeah, so for sure, when you look at my journey, it's take those turns. Take those turns that really don't seem to make sense at that time. Believe in yourself, try it out. Take safe risks. I'm a big believer in taking those risks. If you just play it safe, it's fine, but you're not going to get to where you want to get ultimately, and you got to challenge yourself outside of that comfort zone and take those safe risks. And find yourself some mentors and sponsors. They don't all have to be women. There are great men who support women, but it does make a big difference to have those role models, as Chrissy was saying, to have people who you can go to when you have those little tough days that we all have, that can give you their own tips and tricks along the way. So to me, those are sort of the major ones.
And Chrissy, what would you offer?
Yeah, I think one of them is what you said. You've got to put the numbers on the board, so you need to be competent in your role. You need to have knowledge, and you need to be a continuous student of the business. And then when you have that competency, I think that you need to show confidence, because confidence is, part of just feeling good and being able to push forward and reach to that next level. And then you need to pay it forward. What are we doing individually in this room to give back to the other women and the other people that you're mentoring? And so what is your personalized, formalized program so that you can pay it forward?
And that's all really good advice. And when I look at some of the things that I fundamentally believe, I think you both have articulated them so much better than perhaps I could. But there's one piece that I would like to offer that took me a very long time to admit, is that I think we have to own our feminism, whether we're men or women. We have to own it. It was something I avoided for a long time because it's a risk to own your feminism and stand for some of the things that you believe in. But I think you have to define it for yourself, and you have to make those choices in terms of diplomacy, in terms of how you bring some of those things forward. Because sometimes I think you've got to be persuasive and help people understand some of the challenges. One of the things that I have learned in terms of paying it forward, as you said, Chrissy, is advocating for others, and sometimes that's having the hard conversations with others to help them see that maybe what they're doing isn't helpful. And there's still a lot of programmatic issues, systemic issues that women face in the workplace that we have to own and speak up for them. And I think the last part for me in terms of being a leader, I think we have to be more supportive of families and people in general, because for me, I fundamentally believe one of the reasons why women don't move up in the hotel category is just the demands of the roles. It's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour business, and so it's very difficult for people to manage other dimensions of their life. And I think we've got to be far more thoughtful in terms of allowing people to succeed, putting in some of the solutions that allow them to do their best work, but maybe in a way that they can achieve some of those goals. So again, I think we've got to be very thoughtful about those approaches so that we can fuel that next generation. The last thing that I want to offer that was part of a personal journey for me is learning about yourself. And I fundamentally believe looking at things like a Myers-Briggs or a StrengthsFinders or other kinds of things so that you can tap into your best strengths is really important, because it took me a very long time before I really understood some of the things that really hold me back. So I think the kinds of things that you're saying, Ariel, is about that confidence and taking risks. But I also think it's knowing about your personality, because if we lean into our strengths instead of our weaknesses, because everyone's helping us point out all the opportunities we have, but if we lean into our strengths, we can always bring our best self, and we can always put those numbers on the scoreboard, and we can always win for others. So that's really important, I think, for all of us to do. So the last question coming up, ladies. If you had one ask to make of this audience today, one ask, something that they will fundamentally do differently, what would that be, Ariel?
So it would be the pay it forward. It would be find somebody to help and be helpful.
Okay.
Stole my answer. I would say pay it forward. We each have a responsibility, and it's, we need to step up and make sure that we're helping others.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask Saurabh, because both of these women are saying pay it forward. I think that we all need to get more active in Win It. I hope that we can ask of this audience to get active, to join. I hope you can go back to your companies and ask for an investment, because I think we as a travel industry have to own this differently. And I guess the other part that I would ask of this audience is that we do take someone under our wing and help them in terms of their career development. Because when I think about all the people that invested in me over time. I can never go back, but I think it is around paying it forward. But I think it is taking someone under your wing, mentoring them and helping them, because I think we all had those people in our corner that helped us. So I know we still have a couple more minutes. Ariel, I don't know if you have a closing remark. I'm trying to stretch this.
No, leave them
Do
wanting
you have
more.
a few closing remarks to offer?
Well, I guess one other thought that popped into my head, I think, Dorothy, when you were speaking earlier, is one of the things that I say when you talk about, you know, figuring out a way to advance women in business with all of the obstacles is you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. And we have to sort of accept that as women. You know, sometimes you're at a stage where family has to take over a little bit and you have to find a way to let business come behind and vice versa. So it's not having it all at the same time and accepting that.
Okay. I don't know that I agree with that, but I don't think you can have it all. I think that's one of those myths that we sometimes
But not
set
at the
up
same
women.
time.
Yeah.
You have choices.
Yeah.
You do have
Yeah.
choices,
You have
but when
choices,
you make a
and
choice,
you have to own your choices. And if you make a bad decision, it's okay. Go back and make another choice.
Yeah.
There are always choices on the table, and that's how you live your life. It's never going to be perfect. I would love to say this is a perfect world, but it's not. But you control your own life and your own destiny. And so be confident about that.
Yeah.
I think that's very well said, Chrissy, and I would fundamentally agree with you that we have to own our choices, and sometimes we might have regrets about them, but
That's okay.
learn from
That's
it
life.
and move on.
That's
So,
right. I didn't
yeah.
regret anything about last night. That was fun. That was a huge dance party. I loved it.
Well, we're
Thank
coming
you
to
all.
a close. Yeah, I thank you all. I hope that you'll join with me in thanking our two panelists today for your participation. And again, thank you for being such a good audience for us. So thank you.
Thank you.